Okay, let's go. Thank you for coming. Today we're going to have a discussion with the Metropolitan Recreation District and the City Council. Would you go on the roll, please?
Councilmember Dennehy. It's not there. Councilmember Maloney.
Here.
Councilmember Schmisher. Here. Councilmember Stein. Here. Councilmember Tracy. Here. Councilmember Worthington.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick. Absent. Mayor Troutman.
Here. And the metric, you want to call the roll?
Cooper Trahern. Andy Palmisano.
Here.
Melissa Smines.
Here.
Sean Rogers.
Here.
And Christina Post here.
Okay, and I think we ought to start out, there was a meeting yesterday, which I would like Kyle Horn, if you will, where's Kyle? Just at the end. Would you mind doing a rendition or a slight update from that?
So just a quick update on things that have happened, just to keep a quick recap. During feasibility phase, 24 is determined through public feedback, which pursue a year-round option. That involved numerous public meetings, more than 4,000 survey results. And then that determined that it was the year-round option. We ran on delivering that option on a seasonal field. It was discussed in multiple presentations that all three measures would have to pass to make full reality. Based on the results, why no shovel hit the ground. In 2024, capital construction was authorized by the voters to pass the two ballot measures. 2A passed, which was the sales tax question, by 611 votes. Question 60, the debt financing, passed by 89 votes. Question 6A, which was for operations of the pool, failed by 542 votes. So capital construction was authorized, operations was not. Only two of the measures passed, and there was no way to begin construction, but there was an option to plan for potential construction. The only reason that was made possible was there's 2A and 6B, which were two questions that were very had to pass together. They did. That's exactly what happened. So in April of 25, the Recreation District and the City of Cañon City entered into an IGA and decided to go back to the voters as the sales tax was being collected and approach it through either a property tax question or an alternative funding question. Pool planning would be allowed to move forward within that IGA in the interest of saving time and being able to begin construction sooner to avoid some of the liabilities of a slower construction schedule, which had a large increase in price. And that, of course, was pending the passage of the ballot measure. In July of 25, the city presented an idea in a meeting between the Recreation District and the city here about presenting an excise tax option. After discussion between the district and the city, decided to move forward with the excise tax option over the property tax. In November of 25, the 2B excise tax question failed by 526 votes. Basically, percentage-wise, the question that passed in the city in 24 and the question that failed in 25 flipped by about 17%. So that is where we are at. So now we are at the point where the city and the rec district must decide how they want to move, if they want to move forward, or if they want to go back to the drawing board. I will say that looking at the funding that is in existence for both the city and the recreation district, using existing budgets, there's no way to fund the operations of this facility as is. We have looked at other communities to see what is being done, and in all communities that we have found, it is funded through tax dollars, not through private donations. They need a steady fund, and that's where we're at.
Thank you. I would be remiss. Today is Veterans Day. And how many veterans do we have in the audience? Any veterans? I'm a veteran. Started this morning really early with breakfast at the Legion. And yesterday I talked to several classes at the middle school and Washington School. And I spent 4 years in the military and the Air Force during Vietnam, and that was very exciting. 3 of those years I was out of the country. So thank you for your service. And thank you for living in the greatest country in the world. So thank you. Now I lost my track. So
Kyle.
Kyle.
Recap.
in the recap, what do we do next? Would you like to talk about next? Have a discussion on next steps? Or do we want to go to the people in the crowd that would like to address it here? Let's do that. Okay, Billy Masson, where's Billy?
I voted for the pool. I think that he needs a pool. I also worked for the Royal Gorge Railroad. This last Saturday, they offered a train ride to celebrate to be failure. I understand it. But because I voted yes, and they found out, I was told I was not allowed to ride that train. I also hear Mark wants to buy the adjoining parking lot between Veterans Park and Duck Park. I don't think that should be allowed because during Whitewater and during Blossom, that is your biggest parking lot. Why allow him to purchase that parking lot and charge people to park there when we use that parking lot as citizens, when there's no other parking available to go to either Whitewater or Blossom? And he says that he's going to fund or donate this $100,000. Are you positive that he's going to do that? Or is he going to go back on his word?
Okay, thank you. And what we'd like to do is have a discussion on maybe next steps forward. I understand
I
your passion.
understand that.
I understand your passion for everything, but if we could do that, that would be a great help. So,
I think we should move forward. But
okay,
my question is, Mark says he's going to donate that $100,000. Are we sure that he's going to donate that $100,000?
well,
So we can move forward?
that would be an avenue that we would have to explore. Absolutely. Okay. Gregory Thompson? Am I saying that right? Oh, Fred, oh, I'm sorry. It's Fred Tony.
Come there by you or what?
Fred, no, you can't come up yet. You look again.
Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, just for the record, I'm regular. But,
We had breakfast.
I had to write some notes, I was in a hurry. But I'm gonna skip the first 3 pages because I think everybody here believes Canyon City's not complete without a pool. I think, this initiative that we've gone through is divided the city almost in half. And we've got to rebuild that trust. We got to restart, do the transparency right. And what I would suggest is we have a path forward. I think, the rec district talked about moratorium on the taxes so that we could reconvene and, get a new plan. I think a phased in approach would be the way to go. I don't think we'd have to trash all the plans that they've made, and the expense of that, but if people wanted to replace their bond pool, let's replace that, do it in a phase where we can complete that task, fund it much less, maybe a couple $100,000 a year to, operate it. And then phase in as we see the success of that and the financial rating of it, how we want to do it. But then we can move on to the next phase of the pool. But I think we do need a pool. The community, it would grow better. I think it's a great positive for the community with people moving here, for families. But I would suggest that we continue on and create this outdoor pool and then observe and
and just see what it'll lead to on the next phase of the indoor complete complex. Thanks.
Thank you, Fred. I had that correct, right? Well, you should see how you wrote your name. Beth, Gatsmer.
So Beth Ketchmark. And first of all, I just want to say that I got up yesterday and talked to the rec district, and apparently that was put into the newspaper. And I am actually very scared and very disappointed that the Daily Record chose to call out the name of my business, and I am no longer the treasurer of the FCTC, and it's very scary for me to be, because the reason I haven't spoken out anytime except at the very beginning of this whole issue is because I'm very, very scared of the potential retribution against my business by certain entities that exist. So I just want to say that at the beginning. The main point of what I got up yesterday was because I agree, everybody wants pools. A lot of people were confused about the funding mechanism of the excise tax. A lot of people were confused about what we had already voted for and what we were voting for in this issue. But I think if we give up this collection of the 0.3 sales tax, we will probably never get a pool. And I think we should, as John Hamburg has said yesterday, I think he was very prudent in his suggestion that we all step back and take a moment and seek, if we're gonna put a moratorium, that we seek, the July 1st moratorium or a later date, that we collect. I talked to a number of people yesterday when I told them after the meeting that potentially we may give up all of our potential to build a pool because several people on the rec district were saying that maybe we shouldn't continue to collect the tax. I don't think we'll ever get that back, not in our lifetime. The reason when we moved here, there was a pool. That's one of the reasons we moved down here, because we were improving our schools and we had a pool for recreation. And we raised 3 incredible kids on the schools here, the recreation possibilities, but they moved away because they wanted to move to a community that invested in itself more, that cared more about itself, that had things for them and their future families to do. So I think we should take a step back and we should look at the continued collection of the sales tax, the potential of building the pool, and approach the operation funding as a separate mechanism with a more thoughtful process of the implicate. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Don Gretzka. Don?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Dawn Greca. Along with my husband and our family, we own and operate the Rolls Royce Railroad, one of Kansas City's largest employers, and one of the longest standing businesses here in town. From the beginning, our intentions have been simple, clear, and care deeply about this community. We want Canyon City to thrive. And we've always been ready to help, including our standing offer for $100,000 a year for a community pool. That offer was never about politics. It was about people, families, children, and seniors, and about creating something joyful that brings everyone together. But instead of collaboration, we were met with silence. No letters answered, no phone calls returned. We made repeated attempts. We tried numerous times for months to sit down and discuss with city leaders. We reached out through voicemails, letters, and individuals who tried to facilitate the meeting. Not once would anyone sit down and talk with us. Then, in public meetings, our mayor should have led with professionalism and unity, chose to single out my husband by name, mischaracterizing us and encouraging public hostility towards both him personally and our railroad. That tone encouraged some others, even a few local business owners, to join in. We were portrayed as villains in a political battle that we didn't start and we do not belong in. It was wrong, it was hurtful, it was unfair, not only to us, but to the 300+ employees who proudly represent the railroad and who are also citizens of this community. But still, here we are. We are still standing in this room today, not to fight, forgive, move forward, and offer to help. Despite months of personal and public attacks, we are here saying again, let's sit down, let's work together, Let's build a pool that truly serves this town. Because while some others criticized, no one else stepped up to offer real funding. And we have and still are sitting here, this offer on the table to all of you. Sit down and talk to us about this. Understand the details and let's work together. We hope others, including local businesses, will join us in pledging their own support to make this a shared success, an ongoing success. This doesn't end in 1 year. It's an ongoing offer. Doing business here has not always been easy, but we believe it can be better. Wouldn't it be wonderful for city leaders and businesses and citizens to all stand together, including one of the largest, most dedicated employers in Fremont County, make this city stronger than ever. Let's stop dividing this town and start building it. Let's return to collaboration, respect, and honesty. That's the kind of leadership this city deserves. And that's the kind of community we all believe in. On behalf of myself, my husband Mark, our family, and our incredible employees, welcome visitors from around the world every single day. We remain steadfast in our commitment to Canyon City. We are ready still to contribute, still to build and to bring people together. Because at the end of the day, this isn't about politics. It's about pride in our town. And we've never stopped believing in what Canyon City can be if we all work together.
Thank you, John. Beth, Gaffney.
Hi, everybody. I did not write out an entire speech today. I came here to speak as a native Canyon City person who grew up here with a wonderful opportunity to swim every day on swim team and then go back and swim at the pool in the afternoon and go back and swim at the pool in the evening. And that's where a lot of my growing up happened. I had lived 2 blocks from the pool, well, 4 probably. And I walked there every day, and it was part of this community. It was part of what kids did. It's part of what kept kids out of trouble. And for those of you who know me, I'm very interested in kids, and I'm very invested in my community because I live here and have lived here for many years. My parents lived here. My mom was manager of the Royal Board. My dad was president of Fremont Bank. We are solid citizens. And we know what community looks like. We understand what people need to do to contribute to a community. And it is about collaboration. It's about a common goal. Sometimes it's about sacrifice. I have definite thoughts on some of the election antics on both sides of the fence. I look at people's actions. I look at what they show me. And that's how I make my determinations about whether I can trust people or not. I am hoping that we can build a collaborative group, including Boys and Girls Club, Canyon City Schools, the Rec District, the city, the county, by the way, because the Rec District serves a lot of the county. This should be everyone, because every one of those entities enjoys the benefits and should have contributions toward those benefits. And for people who say, well, I don't use the pool. What I have to say to you is, I don't use the archery range. I pay for it. And I pay for it happily, because I know what community means. So, that being said, I'm all for a pool. I think it can be done. I think there are lots of unexplored avenues. And I'm happy to support and promote those. And I hope that people who really want to be community members learn what it means to be a community member in Canyon City.
Thank you, Beth. Sandy, where's Sandy?
Right here.
No, you moved.
I do.
Go ahead.
Hi, Sandy Montague. I just want to say yesterday I learned a lot. I did very informative. And I think what Sean said was very true, but I think that we should step back and take a break for 6 months. I think that's kind of important. And, yeah, it was an interesting meeting yesterday. So, and I do have one other thing to say. The Veterans Park parking lot should not be on the table for any of. On July 25th, Mark sent Brian a email or a text stating that they asked for total control of the shared lot at Veterans Park. So they would find, then they would fund a nonprofit to help operate. This would be a detriment to your citizens. It would be, you'd sell your citizens out, and this is extortion if they get that, part. I asked Dawn about that yesterday, she totally denied it, so. You know, we've got to be upfront of what's going on in this town. Thanks.
Thanks, Sandy. Jerry Reeves. Hey, Jeremy.
So I was at the meeting yesterday, I gave my advice, or I guess gave my opinion. I think maybe a moratorium or holding it off for 6 months, I'm not sure, maybe, it's up to you guys, I said that yesterday. Maybe squash the whole thing like Canyon City, see it without a pool for a while. You know, and I had written this whole thing, but right as I walked out the door, I want people to know what we're dealing with. Right as I walked out the door, I got suspended from my job. Because they leveraged their contract with my employer to get me suspended. So when we talk about contracts, and I mean, where do we go from that? Like, you talk about working with the new council, what happened, now what? How do you want me to deal with that? I'm the new council. You're showing all of us new, the only reason why I said, I gotta say this, the only reason why I said any of this yesterday is because your letter implicated me, Tony, all of us in some deal that you guys are talking about behind the scene. It suggests that you've talked to all of us and that you're working on something. That's what it says. And so I'm making it clear that I'm not doing that. I'm not working behind the scenes. I think that the pool deal should be right out in front of everybody. But apparently, because I think that, I get suspended from my job. And now where are we gonna go with that? You have to now answer the whole city. That you guys are somebody suspended from their job because they didn't agree with you.
Hey, Jeremy, please, let's,
I mean,
okay.
that's the thing, I'm passionate. I didn't take this job so I could be sitting back there all new super Mr. Calm and everything. What would you do if they got you suspended from your job, Russell? Tell me.
Well, it's not.
No, I'm serious, because it's easy for you to be Mr. Calm guy with your stack of cash, but I have the rest of my life to live. And I just got suspended from my job, and they're clearly gonna try to get me fired from it, so now what?
Jeremy, maybe that's a subject we need to take up at a different.
Well, no, is that intimidation, is that extortion, is that what we're
I
taking?
don't think we're here to talk about the pool and next step. forward.
No, I mean, this is part of it,
Well,
because we should not include them in any of it.
okay,
That's it, because as she said, on the 24th, they
Alright.
clearly told him, I'm on the point, so stop cutting me off, I'm on the point. Is that you got that text message from Mark, his only concern is the parking lot, and that is the only concern. He is gonna be moving towards that, that's the only goal. The only goal is to move towards that, and so any inclusion with them is gonna be an extortion towards that. Clearly, they're trying to leverage it against me to force my hand into the next council, prove me wrong.
okay. Ben Gubens. Who's Ben? Where's Ben? Ben? Am I saying that right?
Googans, yeah.
Gubens. Knew your
Oh.
grandfather.
What's that?
I knew your grandfather.
Okay. Don't have a whole lot to say. I guess I just had a question about what the city has done to reach out to Mark and, what's your name?
My name's Dawn.
Mark and Don, with their, about their generous offer of $100,000. What specifically has been, there's been any meetings set up yet, or anything kind of put on paper to kind of lock this in?
They were invited to take one for the next 24th, they didn't come.
No,
We have the text message.
Yeah, but I'm talking.
No, they did.
No, it is.
All right,
I'm not
yeah.
actually showing here.
All that, let's stop it.
What was it? It's the truth, excuse me. You got time to stop. Let me speak, please. Or what I'm doing.
Okay.
Good, yeah. So, I mean, I feel it's a generous offer and I think someone from the city should be grabbing onto that. I'm a huge fan of the pool. I do feel the pool that was put forward is. I mean, with $1 million operating budget, we're talking about a serious financial commitment, so. I feel like it could have been something a little smaller. I certainly voted for, every time, even when there was a, property tax, I still voted for it. I would have lots of properties that would be impacted, but, so I'm a huge fan of it, but at the same time, I think the community's got a certain conservative side and sort of a fiscal responsibility that says it's a little too much. So I'm a huge fan of, the gentleman over here that said a more but phased approach is just a verbatim replacement of what's there. And then, see about when the funds become available, build something right next door with it, with an indoor. It seems like a reasonable approach that somehow we've been operating in Kubota up until recently with the staff and the budget we had. So I understand it's been a bit of a strain, but at the same time, with $100,000 offered, along with getting a little creative with our current budget, it seems like a new pool would have fewer fixes, fewer problems, it'd be easier to operate. So it seems like that would almost be enough to cover it. So I feel like there's a little more financially conservative approach that would get a pool. We talk about getting kids swim lessons and stuff. Well, that would cover these really important aspects of having a pool. So, everybody wants big shiny things. So I think a big pool like that with a covered this and slides and stuff is wonderful. But I think, maybe taking a little smaller sort of approach is not a bad way to do it. So I think it's a really generous offer. I think as a city, we need to reach out and see what we can do to, get that locked in and get some conditions and what it takes to get that money going towards the pool.
Without bedrooms parking.
Thank you, Ben. All right. Heather. Dara. Heather Dara.
I'm not gonna stand up because I won't be able to talk. I'm shy. So I'll just ask a few questions. After it's full as passed, I just have a lot of questions in my mind, and I feel like maybe some of these can start facilitating some conversation about the pool. So I guess one thing, I guess you guys talked about a moratorium. I guess I'm just wondering how long we can extend that moratorium to kind of get this new plan in place, before we have to sort of abandon the funds that were approved in 2024. So that's one of my questions. And then another question I have, does the city have to build the exact pool voted on this page? Or can we build like, one of the options, I think, was 9 million. So I'm wondering if we can build that, or if it has to be the exact pool that we build that. Because I guess my question is like, well, if we built the $9 million pool, maybe the operating costs would be around. And it seemed like a pretty amazing design that they came up with that actually. And still sort of meeting all the needs. I know the swim team wouldn't be able to use it, unfortunately. I did like what the man said earlier over there, hearing more about the phasing approach. I know there's a pool in Pueblo West right now. They, I think, either are working on getting passed or just got passed. And they implemented it. I think they're implementing a phasing approach. And that seems like a really good solution. Let's see, another question I actually have is more towards Don. I was just kind of curious, like, what the term would be, if that be 10 years of operating costs, or would it be 20 years or 5 years? And then another thing, I'd imagine, at some point you guys may want to sell the railroad. And so I guess I'm wondering, would the new owners be responsible then for continuing that effort. I know you're talking about turning it into a nonprofit. And just so I wasn't quite sure how all that works, but, anyway, I had written you guys a couple letters. A couple weeks leading up to vote. You know, I based, you know, what's your name? Oh, I'm Heather Darrow. Oh, yeah, I wrote you guys a couple letters, and I just, you know, I, like my husband just said, you know, I do think it's very generous what you guys are offering. So, I, you know, aside from all the political stuff, and, you know, I didn't agree with all the stuff on your side and stuff, but, I'm very pro pool, and I really think that we just need to move forward and really just have this discussion that really gets at some of these questions and kind of more of a dialogue, you know. I think if we can be real creative as a community and just, you know, have this be like a brainstorming, you know, sort of thing, if we can have more of these meetings where people are just coming together and brainstorming different options, I think that would be good. So, sorry for my shaking use, but that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Dennis Weed, are you here? Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So, I made it real clear, and I think I've done this plenty of times before. I'm very much in favor of the pool. I think the design of the pool as it is maybe more than people were expecting. But it is within the budget that the people who voted to have a pool approved. So it's within the budget of the pool. Now, and then the question becomes how do you operate it? And I think the solution, and I've said this several times before the council meeting, she'll think it's right in front of us. There's no smoke and mirrors involved, and it's pretty straightforward. But there's a couple of pieces that questions need to be answered. First one is kind of to council. I don't know where we are with negotiations with the bridge contract, but there is a possibility of raising funds for operating the pool based on bridge contract negotiations. Without giving away anything, can you say, yeah, that looks positive, or no, it doesn't?
Yes, that looks positive.
Okay, good. Okay, that's the first piece. And if the numbers are like numbers that we've talked about, we're looking at maybe $300,000-$400,000 a year, something like that. Does that sound right? Yeah, okay. The second part is the generous offer from the train. Question I would have for the train is, other than setting up a 501c3, are there any other conditions?
That's all part of the discussion that should have to happen. I mean, obviously, not to ever throw us into a political disaster again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll just leave it at that. So we're looking at more 500,000 now. And then this is the most controversial part, and it's also the most logical part. I've said this a bunch of times in the past. Canyon City has passed up on the opportunity to collect millions of dollars in taxes that are already being paid. They're just not being paid to Canyon City. It's I'm talking about legalizing the sale of cannabis in Canyon City. I mean, I know it's not a super popular idea, but if you think for a minute that not selling it here means that people aren't buying it or using it, you're crazy. All that's happening is that tax revenue is going to JP County, Colorado Springs, Manitou Springs, and Pueblo. And I've done some numbers. Over the last 20 years, we've probably blown on the very, very low end, $4 million, on the high end, well more than $8 million. And when you combine the three of those,
you've got the money to operate a pool. So. Take some backbone on part of, council, say, I think there's two ways to approve cannabis sales. One is by a vote of the people, that fails. The other one is by ordinance. That's the other way you can approve it, by ordinance. So do it, approve it by ordinance, start collecting that revenue and make this happen. That's it's foolish to think that. Well, it's foolish to pass up on all of that money. So that's all I got to say. Build the pool, operate it.
Okay. Anybody on board would like to address? Yeah, Andrea.
Anne Ravenstein, and I represent, District 1. And I'm a lame duck council person, so I have absolutely nothing to lose. I love Kansas City. I've lived here for 9 years. It's a beautiful place. And I have a question for everyone. What is our most important resource in this town? People. Our children. Okay. How many of you have kids at home? I raised 6 children. And for better or for worse, they're out there raising Cain all over the country. But anyways, there were 3 things when they were little and they were growing up and I was sending them away to school. 3 things I taught them. Be kind. Tell the truth. Stand up to bullies. So I don't want an answer to this question. I just want you all to think about this. Yes, we need a pool. If I could push a magic button and make it happen, I would. But the question I want to ask you is, what did this campaign teach our children? Who wins? Thank you. I'm sorry for taking your time, but I needed to say that. Because I care about you and your kids. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'm Amy Smisher. I'm an at-large who has another 2 years. I am interested in Ms. Darrow's questions, and I'm wondering if we could potentially get Mr. Slater or Ms. Sellers to answer them. Heather, please correct me if I got any of these wrong, but is there a length of time on the moratorium? Does the city, and I think in this instance, I'm going to amend the question to, does the rec district have to build the exact pool? Can they go back to the $9 million pool, and what would the operating costs of a smaller pool be?
In terms of the questions that are, I guess, somewhat legal, in terms of whether the ballot issue that was adopted last year requires a specific kind of pool, the answer is no. It requires just that an aquatic facility be built with the funds that are raised through the sales tax and the bond issue. That's the only requirement. It didn't require indoor, outdoor, or it didn't require that it be this many square feet, or that nothing was required by that ballot issue other than that it be an aquatic center for the citizens of Canyon City, or the Canyon City Recreation District. As far as the moratorium, it's my understanding the moratorium can be as short or as long as city council chooses. I would leave Ms. Sellers to, if she wants to give the city council advice as to what the city can or can't do. But I would say that it's my understanding that the sales tax that was passed last year does have a definite sunset year. So the longer that the moratorium exists, those are years that will never be captured at the back end. The sales, that sales tax revenue would be gone forever. So that's something to bear in mind, is that the longer the moratorium exists, the less amount of money that we would be able to collect to pay back bonds that we would take out, presumably under the other competition.
And just maybe for, to ensure everybody has the same common understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, Administrator Stevens or Attorney Slater. The city has to tell the state to collect, the city told the state to collect the sales tax that was passed in 2024. So it's been collected since January 1 of this year. The city has the opportunity twice a year to say, don't collect this. Those dates that the state would start or stop are January 1 and July 1. We have to let them know 45 days in advance, and it requires a lot of local government work in advance of that. So you're probably looking at more like, I don't even want to guess, but maybe 10 weeks or so before January 1 or July 1, if we wanted to say, actually, pause or stop collecting. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, that's right. So, because we're state collected, there are two opportunities a year to either start or stop collecting an authorized tax. And you also have to have, you have to give the state 45 days notice. So if we were to stop collecting on January 1st, we have to let the state know next week that we were going to stop or put a moratorium on the 0.3% sales tax.
And if we did that, we could then go back in May and pass another ordinance or resolution that says collect again if there was a plan in place that the rec district was comfortable with that would allow funding for the operations, et cetera.
Yeah, that is correct. I would caution council that starting and stopping in a year can be very confusing for the businesses that have to collect and remit. It puts a lot of work on both the businesses and our finance team to make sure that everything that's being remitted is being remitted correctly and all those types of things. So, just something to keep in.
Sure. So while it might look easy for us, it may not actually be easy for the people who have to do.
That's correct.
And can we decide today whether anyone thinks that that's a good idea, or do we just keep collecting and keep moving forward with the plan? Can we vote on that, or?
No votes today.
No votes, but can we get a consensus?
Any direction, it's called thumbs up or thumbs down.
I think I'd want to hear from the rec district. They're the ones who would be building and operating the pool.
I know that I made my stance very clear yesterday. I'm for either continuing to collect it or putting a moratorium on it until we have more time to come up with a plan. I know some other board members have differing opinions, and that's okay too. That's my own. I think that we have a lot of ideas flowing around right now from people who really do want to see this pool happen. And I think it's worth some more time to give that a chance. And if there's a 6-month moratorium and nothing materializes, not enough materializes, then I think we might have our answer about the pool at that time. But I do think we need some more time.
I would add on to that. In the week since the election, we have heard a lot from folks, a lot of different ideas, reduce the size. And then also there's movement towards the donation-based model for keeping the pool open. And while the rec district, I don't know how sustainable that is, but in 1 week, that's not enough time to flesh anything out. So I feel like, a 6-month moratorium is be a good window in which to preserve the great win that we have, the 2A. We have that funding coming in to operate the pool. And I've heard that people doubt that we would ever pass such a thing again, and we don't want to lose an opportunity like that. However, the operations piece is crucial. You cannot build a pool if you cannot operate it. And you can't be in a position where every year you're begging for money to keep it operating and to keep the expensive elements of the facility running smoothly as well and safely, right? So the rec district can't be put in that position. But I do think, Canyon City is unique, and I think that there is some promise in, opening the door a little bit for a little bit longer. Even though if anyone is sick of talking about this pool, it's probably
Me. But I think we're not done yet, so.
I also want to quickly add, I've heard a lot of people, try not to pay attention too much to Facebook, but I've heard a lot of people saying, we said no. We said no. That's not the truth. You said yes to building a pool. You said yes to building, okay? But you said no to paying to operate it. So with that information, what are we supposed to do? We have people who are demanding we build the pool, and we have people who are telling us, well, we want it, but we don't want to pay to operate it. What are we supposed to do about that? We can't figure that out in a week. So for me, it's not a no. It's a no to operating and it's a yes to building. It's very clear from everyone that we've heard from for the past 2 days that they want the pool built. I haven't heard anyone say no pool. We have to figure out the best way to do that. Having heard 2 times that the way that we're asking to operate it is not what the people want. So that's why I do believe more time would be helpful, because I think, I've given my opinion on it. I think it would be helpful. Go ahead, sorry.
Would you clarify, I know you've spoken before, as to what based on the amount of design that you've done already, what the anticipated operating cost was going to be? Because I think that's a misconception also.
So the anticipating operating costs a year are $1 million, but the revenue from the pool makes $500,000 roughly a year. So what we would need from what the excise tax would have covered would have been $500,000 a year. We would need to supplement what the pool makes of $500,000 with $500,000 from the excise tax.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But you also have to think of the capital reserve fund as well.
Mhm.
You can't just operate the pool and say not be able to fix it if something breaks, right?
Okay, let's have Sean Rogers. Sean.
Hi. My apologies for not being there. I do have some thoughts about what moving forward looks like, specifically for the rec district. I think it's difficult when this is mixed in with, one of the difficulties with mixing it in with city council and city affairs is that the city has a lot of resources. It manages a lot of assets. It's I don't know how much you guys oversee or what your yearly operating budget looks like, but the rec district currently has $5 million in assets to its name, which is not nothing. But when I look at the pool, the project we were looking at was around $24 million, hard costs. It was about 18.5. But all in all, we were looking at basically 5xing our assets. And doing that is also, 5xing your responsibility ultimately, in my mind. And I was willing to do that because we've shown in the past that we are really good at running a pool. I think some people have thought that we were irresponsible because we had to close the asset that we had. But I think that's just getting it wrong, that was open for over 57 years and it was an extremely successful lifespan. Today, I really do think that the rec district, with the budget that it has, is too fragile to kind of not take seriously the lack of backing that the voters have shown. I think that we need to take very seriously that 80% of our budget comes from property owners, which, we can anecdotally say like that they want the pool, but ultimately I think that we really do need to, in my mind, take a moment, do what we're really good at, do what isn't controversial. Which in my mind is activities that actually, for the most part, are self-sustaining. We need to take care of our parks because we offer a lot of value to the community. And as hard as it is to walk back from a bond issue that, I'm all ears, it's the only one that's passed ever in the history of the rec district. I know there were a lot of people that fought really hard for that. I just personally believe that my reading of the room is that that endangers the other things we do as a rec district. I mean, I think people, we run the high risk that people are not going to trust us as an organization. And that's just my read. I respect people that think differently, but that's where I kind of see us.
Thanks, Sean. Anything else?
Some questions are brought up about operations, just to clarify a couple of things. So I've been doing some work with Parker Ranger CCAT. It was mentioned earlier that a new pool, you're gonna have lower costs, whatever else. Parker recently redid the O'Brien pool 5 years ago. They redid the whole thing. This year they have pipe break. So before year 6, pipe break, replacing with some plaster, some other things, it's a $250,000 price tag. After 5 years. So if you don't think something is going to break in a pool, think again. If we're moving, we're constantly filtering water. Just for the sake of argument, let's say you're messing with 250,000 gallons. That means basically you are filtering 1 million gallons of water a day. Something is going to break down. Somewhere, someplace it is going to happen. So you have to be able to have those resources. The rec district did a tremendous job of operating the pool. I can tell you, being in the budget meetings, you have no idea how much from reserves had to try to go in just to do small repairs as we go. One of the reasons the pool got to the point that it is, because if you in totality took all the repairs that were necessary to keep the Ichabod going, you were into not $1 million, in the billions of dollars. The escalation of this equipment will absolutely blow your mind on how expensive it is to operate. So we went around and looked at outdoor facilities. I know you don't want to compare to Parker, so I'm not going to say economically it's the same, but as far as what the pool that I referenced, the O'Brien pool serves, it's not terribly different than the makeup of our population of 28,000, because there are numerous different pools within the community. So when you start to isolate one and look at the design, look at the leisure component, the lap component, how that works, and it's not indoor outdoor, it is strictly outdoor. Right now, their cost recovery is about 54%. Their operations were $466,000, and their subsidy, their revenue was about $252. They're subsidizing 46%. That's not bad for, in all fairness. They're actually doing a tremendous job with it. But now, when you add that subsidy and then throw in the $250,000 price tag, as far as our reserves go, that is about 1/4 of our reserves, our total reserves for the district. So without having an operational plan as part of it, it's not just, oh, how do you do that? The other thing is, when looking at these pools from 2021 to 2024, in all cases, we looked at whether it was Parker, Rifle, some other locations out of state, the increase in staff salaries and to pay the salaries was somewhere in the neighborhood of about $100,000 in the 3-year time span. So you start at that $500,000 figure, then it starts to move potentially. Now, granted, you try to offset and find revenues, but when we're talking cost recovery, talking with repairs, you don't know when that problem is going to happen. One of my predecessor's favorite line was, you never know when Murphy is coming around the corner. Murphy's Law. When it comes to a pool, Murphy's Law is in effect every day. Every single day, we have no idea what's going to happen. And I credit the previous staffs of the rec district for how they operated it, but we are at a point where, contrary to what anybody says online or what anybody wants to believe, there is no bringing back the Ichabod pool. It is out of code. It doesn't meet the safety standards that are required. and it doesn't filter water as quick as you need it to be.
And
We
to
are-
get it there.
And to get it there is millions of dollars, and then you're just pulling the thread. Because then there's gonna be another problem, another problem. The recommendation we have for people that do this for a living is wipe it out, start again. I know nobody in this room wants to hear that. But that's the truth. You don't have to like it. But that's the reality. You don't have to like that there's gonna be a pipe breaking. Is gonna cost you $250,000. You don't have to like it. Parker's living it. So they have to figure out how to do it. Now, all these communities, by the way, that we mentioned, fund their pool through dedicated tax funds for recreation. All of them have it. There is a cautionary tale. There is a special district in Oregon that is basically kind of living what we're doing. Hey, you started with a pool. By the way, it was after 1 year of operations that the community asked for the recreation district to do more. Hey, you got the pool running, that's great, this is in 1966. Now we need you to take over youth baseball, youth football, youth soccer. Oh, now we want a Riverwalk, now we want Rouse Park. Now we want Pathfinder Park, now we want this. But it was never said, please give us money. It was never, oh, well, we're gonna give you the money to do that. It was find a way and make it work. To the credit of previous boards, of previous directors and previous staffs, they always found a way to make it work. That's what this district in Oregon is doing. They went back to the voters for their pool. Hey, we've got an indoor pool. We can't fund these operations anymore. What are we gonna do? They're looking now at closing their pool. Because they always said, do more with less, do more with less. They can't do any more. And the voters were saying, they said to the voters, we need more money. We can't do it. Oh, can you guys look at creating a nonprofit to do this? That didn't work either. You know how much they get in donations on an annual basis? $9,000. So I just want you to know that we are looking at all of these options. We are exploring them. We are talking with the experts, but it's gonna be hard to find a silver bullet.
Okay, Ralph?
Yes.
Sorry. John Henry, one second. John, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that one thing we know for sure is the voters approved the construction of the pool. The question is about operations. If we pause the sales tax, that money will not be recoverable. I think that we do need time to examine the options and see what is possible. Sit down with the train, see what we can do here, because I think the citizens do deserve a pool. My recommendation is not to pause the sales tax collection, or at least for 6 months, but reevaluate as we go along and see where we are. We're going to have the same kind of problems today if we paused as we're going to have in May if we pause. Some of the questions that need to be answered, one of the things that in collecting the sales tax that the city has been looking at is that we're in essence building up the construction fund. Well, the question is, is there some way to build up the operational fund? And that's going to involve sitting down with the train and speaking with them and seeing what where we all stand. And with that, thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Well, suggestions from here. You want to talk about next steps? Go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Ernie Tracy, City Council. A lot is floating through my mind about this, and I've really struggled a little bit about what to touch on, what to leave alone. I do want to say from the start, because some folks have been addressing the city as if it's all city decision and city pool. It is not, was never intended to be a city pool. It's a recreation district pool. They've run the pool historically. The plan has always been for them to continue to own and run a pool. So I wanted to clarify that for those who are sort of focusing on city government. The city is here as a partner with the Recreation District. School District has also been a partner in this project. Those of us who've been actively involved in these discussions, as I have for much of the time, know that these discussions and problem-solving efforts and meetings and work with consultants has gone on for something like 2.5 years. There's been a ton of work put into this. It is very odd and sad, and whatever word you want to put in there, to be in this position now, to have voters in the city approve the sales tax for the construction of the pool a year ago. And yet the Recreation District and the city both now have tried 2 different kinds of ballot measures to approve operational funding and have been turned down. So it's a little hard, and I do think we collectively need a lot more time to figure out what is it that the community wants, because we cannot just go on for another 2.5 years talking about design and size and who does what. We have a lot of, each one of these entities have a lot of other business to be taken care of. We just can't do this year after year. I don't think any of us today, at least I don't feel like I know today at all what the right answer is. I do think that this needs to be a publicly funded pool. I don't believe it's in the best interest, and I'm not on the Rec District board, and I can't speak for the Rec District, but just from my own opinion, I don't think it's in the Recreation District's best interest to shift gears and try to become a fundraising entity, a nonprofit, or partially become that, whatever it would look like, and then try to raise these critical operational funds every year by fundraising. I just think that's not their business, and it's risky. I just think that is not the way to go. It does sound to me, from what I'm hearing from Rec District board members today, and I wasn't privy to the meeting yesterday that they had, but it does sound to me as if the Rec District needs more time to really take a look again about what can they do. They're in a tough position. Correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe the Recreation District has ever been able to pass a funding measure. The only thing they're able to do under the law is property tax increases. And forever and ever over the decades, they've been told no, unless I'm forgetting.
60 years.
50 years.
60.
60, thank you. That's a very long time. I've lived here since the late 70s. My sons grew up here and swam in that pool. They're now in their 50s. My sons are 54 and 51. The pool has been really important to this community for a very long time. But I'm kind of hearing that the Rec District itself is struggling with, how do we, if the public keeps telling us no on property taxes, how do we come up with a sustainable way to operate a pool? So with these dilemmas, a funding stream for building, but not a really good funding stream for operating, or really not one at all, there's going to need to be more discussion. And I think the city, we want to be part of this partnership and help however we can. But we also don't want to put the Recreation District in a position that just is not sustainable for them as a special district. And I have to say too, just going back, I hesitate to do this, but going back to a comment that Councilmember Stein made about, the community shouldn't put themselves, we shouldn't allow ourselves to be in a position of being bullied. I see it kind of in a little different light, but similar, and that is, the community should not be in a position of being in an abusive relationship where we face things like this, and then after an election, you come back and someone's trying to hand us flowers. Those relationships don't work over the long term or the short term. Fortunately, in my own personal life, I've never had to deal with that in a personal way, but a community should not put themselves in a position of being bullied or being in an abusive relationship with an entity that does one thing one day and then comes with flowers the next day. Well, then what happens the day after that? That's just my opinion. I would say, just getting back to the question today, I do think everyone needs a little more time to figure out the best way to go forward on this. I think that there's a specific question about whether the city should or should not continue to collect the sales tax. I'm not even sure how we answer that. With a vote, we can't take it quickly to a vote of the people. So council is gonna have to decide whether to pause that collection. What are the pros and cons to doing that? There certainly are pros and cons to pausing that collection. So I think we just need more time. The recreation district, who is and would be the owner and operator of the pool, I think needs more time to figure out what is going to be sustainable in terms of a swimming pool for this community. And here we have a community, and many of us, as those others have already said, this community deserves a decent pool facility. The children, the adults, the senior citizens in this community deserve that. And it's unfortunate that it has been such a struggle for the governing bodies to figure out how to find that path. So I know that people who are on the side of supporting the pool aren't going to give up easily, but I don't think we know the answers today. And I'll leave my comments at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to comment? Sean, you there?
Yes, yes. So this has been, I think, Councilwoman Tracy really outlined the struggles that we're having nicely. It seems to me that sorry, unfortunately I have to work, so I'm pulling over. It seems to me that we all, as members of Canyon City, we're all on the same page that we want a pool, but we're having a really hard time coming to terms with, we did not get the mill levy increase that we needed. So my question in this discussion would be, are we considering putting a mill levy back on the ballot? And if we're not considering doing that, then we've already put what I would call a non-traditional tax through the city, an excise tax that failed. So I guess my question is, I would feel like we need another path forward if we're going to, and I know people are saying, well, we haven't had enough time. That's almost acting in my mind like the last 2 years, like it didn't exist. I mean, I think that the amount of thought and effort that has gone into this have been tremendous. And I know no one's saying that they haven't been, but what I'm saying is, I just personally stand at a place where I say, although the pain of letting some of this go is really hard, if we're going to hold on to it, it shouldn't be, and I'm not saying this is because, I'm just saying from my vantage point, it shouldn't be because we're in pain. It should be because we have some path that we actually believe in forward, not like, and in my mind, private funding, I mean, there's so many questions that come along with that, not to mention the rating of the bonds. Like the rating of the bonds are dependent upon it's like the income in a household when you go to buy a house. So we haven't went down that road yet, but the $24,000 depends upon the quality of the bonds. If our means of operating the pool isn't stable, then that affects the stability of the whole project. So all I'm saying is, as much as we'd like to kind of like cobble together an answer, man, I just think that the rec district is fragile. People may have the idea that we have a lot of funds. We don't. Like Kyle said, anything that comes up in the operations of the pool that's outside of our scope, without a really, really, substantial operating budget, I think it's just imprudent. That's my opinion.
Okay.
Well, I was just gonna try to keep the consensus going and just say that I don't think we should stop collecting sales tax, and I think we should continue to move forward. And like Emily said, we have to come up with a publicly funded way to do this and not explore private donations and those other things. That's my thing.
I'd have to agree with that, even though I don't get a vote. We need to continue to collect it. I think we have meetings more often and hone in on the seriousness of this. I often do economic development. I know a few companies, once we say we had no pool, they're gone. New Mexico. And you're gonna see that more often. I'm not even getting inquiries anymore. Well, the top 5 on the list was a pool. And when I asked why, was because I can hire, you have the manpower here, you've been trained here. But the executives that are coming with us to run that company will not come here. The number one thing in their children's life almost is swimming. That's number 5 in their list, and believe it or not, everyone else work. Now, speaking of which work, I have a 2:00 appointment I can't get around. I just gotta tell you that 1,000 brokers were talked to about looking at the new forms and everything. I was one of 30 selected. And so I'm gonna go back and get on a phone call with them. But please, maybe we should have every other week or so, that discussion. I think maybe you should look at toning it down a little bit, although I think Kansas City deserves a Taj Mahal. I'd like people to leave Canyon City and say, wow, what a place. And I deal with many people out of town. My job is to deal with people from out of town, so's Dallas. They'll tell you. Lost people because of that. You need the wow factor. I've been doing this 51 years here. I grew up here. I have never been so insulted in my life. Think of how my family's been hurt. Think of the shenanigans and the malicious way I've been treated. Huh?
Us too. We
Yeah.
went into the public.
Well, you had me on that sign, with my caricature, and you knew damn well what you were doing. That malice of foresight. You knew damn well, why did you put my name on?
Hold on. Mr. Mayor, if we're not, if the crowd can't get into it with each other,
All right.
I'd ask that you not get into it with the crowd.
Thank you so much.
And can I
I'm
ask
gonna
one
go to work.
clarification question before we go?
Yes, go right ahead.
Start Greg, AKA Brett Tony. So let's say the rec board goes back tomorrow in their board meetings and they decline to move forward. Can the city take up the cause using the sales tax and move forward with the city? And does the 2024 vote limit the build of the pool to the rec district?
I think that may be a question for Catherine. I think the way the ballot language was written, it was written in a partnership with the Recreation District. And the Recreation District is the one who took out, got the approval, they take out the loan, the bonds. So Catherine, I don't know if you have something else you'd like to add to that.
No, that's correct.
So just for clarity's sake, the city cannot build a municipal city pool with the sales tax collected dollars. Is that correct?
Not without going back to the voters and asking for the use of those dollars for that function. The way the ballot question was worded was it was to pay the bonds issued by the district for construction of the pool by the district. And having the city potentially issue bonds, because it probably doesn't have the resources to pay for it outright, and use that sales tax to build a pool would require voter approval.
To be clear, in theory, the district could build a pool that the city would operate, I think. If the city was interested in that, I think that's a conversation that could be had. But I mean, with what the discussion passed.
Gary, you could be a lifeguard.
I was gonna say, we could, this is for Ryan and.
Could I ask?
That could be.
I'm taking gavel.
Thank you.
Sorry, did I hear Sean?
Yes, one small thing. this might feel off the rails what I'm about to say, but if we're going to elongate our process and look at creative problem solving, I mean, I would say I'm willing to be a team player, but while we just touched on it, in my mind, I mean, a more stable path forward is, man, if the voters would allow the city to vote to build the pool, if they would allow the city to appropriate those sales tax dollars, build the pool, and then there could be an IGA between the rec district and the city, meaning the rec district runs the pool for the city, which is what we're good at. That to me sounds like something that would be totally worth exploring. A lot of conversation to be had there, but that seems like a step in the right direction. I mean, we wouldn't, in theory, I mean, again, this is creative problem solving in real time here. So, you would not step away from the bond issue that was already passed. You would just need some basically transferring of funds, and I think that would help. For me, what is my biggest concern, which is the small number that the rec district works with per year.
Thank you, Sean. Any attorney feedback on that creative
I mean,
problem solving?
The issue right now is not where do we find the money to build the pool? We have the money to build the pool.
Right.
The issue is how do we operate the pool? So transferring the obligation to build the pool over to the city doesn't solve the operations problem. Because again, the problem isn't where do we find the money to build the pool? We have the money to build the pool. But
Dan, but the problem for me is the reputation and the relationship that the rec district has with the voters. It's not the question of, it's the question of elongating this process so much that people no longer want anything to do with the rec district. That's a serious concern as a member of the board. And I know some people aren't taking that seriously. And some people are saying that we should hang on to the bond issue. But I mean, I feel the fatigue. I know a lot of people in this room are energized, and that's awesome. These are the people that are building and constructing the community. But not everybody's showing up to this meeting, but a lot of those people do support the rec district through property taxes and participation. So I take them seriously.
Thank you.
If I may say something?
Please.
Thank you. I just want to point out that we already have a partial solution for operating the pool. That's the $100,000 a year that we've heard about from the train. That is the bridge revenues that are going to be coming in from the extraterritorial tax.
John, sorry, let me just stop you there. That ordinance 17 had a clause that required 2B to pass.
Yep.
So that doesn't, there aren't bridge revenues coming in based on the extraterritorial tax. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay.
Based on the extraterritorial surcharge. Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you very much. So, but that doesn't mean that we cannot revisit the issue. I reiterate, I think that we've got a partial solution here. We do need more time. And I would not cast aspersions on any board member. I think everybody's operating in good faith and realizes the stakes and the sensitivities that we're all facing. Thank you. And with that, I've got to run. Thanks.
Thanks, John. I think we got a consensus opinion from this people. Did you guys have any additional thoughts that you'd like to give?
Well, I also agree with maintaining the sales tax for the time being. We need to have that money set aside because by golly, I do feel we are going to come to a solution. It's not going to, obviously, it has not come as quickly as we would like. I do believe that there are opportunities out there. I don't agree with some of the suggestions, but I do feel that we do need to maintain the collection of the sales tax for the time being, especially because there is a sunset on it. And we do need to maintain that for at least for the next 6 months. We have another opportunity to jump off if we want to, but I think we'd be premature in doing that now.
What is the sunset?
25 years.
Oh, so sorry, just to make sure folks could hear, the Beth's, or sorry, Miss Catchmark's question was, when is the sunset, and it's 25 years after it was passed?
Correct.
Okay, so before I weigh in, I have a question for all of you. And you're here because you care, and I really appreciate that, because many of our meetings, they're all important. We have a lot of business we conduct, but there's no citizens that come to those meetings. So I really appreciate that you're all here, but I have a question. As Emily said, and as the board members can tell you, for a solid 2.5 years, their meetings have gone on and on. They have put hundreds, if not thousands of hours into this project. What can the people in this room, what could you do in 6 months that would add to or change that? If we pause it for 6 months, what are we gonna do, Beth?
Well, I think that one of the main problems with this whole excise tax issue was brought late to the table. There wasn't enough information about it. There wasn't enough of the correct meetings to talk about it. You know, everybody wasn't brought to the table so that everybody could discuss the thing before it was put on the ballot. And I think right now, the intake I get from talking to a lot of people is a lot of people just didn't understand what was going on, what we were voting for, and what the potential outcome. I don't think there's a single person that realizes that by saying no to the issue, we might be saying no to a pool. I don't think anybody realized that. And so I think that needs to be brought out. Once again, I think in the next 6 months, we have to have more discussion about the whole issue. I thought the excise tax was a great idea because it's like a lodging tax. You know, the visitors pay for the thing. It's no skin off of anybody's teeth. The business doesn't pay for it. The lodgers pay, the lodging people pay. When visitors on vacation, they don't care if they pay an extra $2.25 on a $100 ticket. They don't care if they pay another amount on the lodging room. They don't care if they pay a service fee on when you go to a hot spring. So those are things that you normally, but I just don't think that information was brought out in a forthright, explainable manner to the people who would be collecting the taxes and to the people who would be paying, or the citizens who would be benefiting it. So I think that's something that could definitely happen in the next 6 months.
Okay, so sometimes, and I know I see you in so many meetings, Beth, you're at a lot of our meetings, I really appreciate that. But sometimes I feel like I'm on planet A and other people are on planet B. And we have so many meetings and we have so much information on our website. If there's anything you want to know about the current options and where the people of this community, what they decided they wanted in the pool, it's all on our website.
I know, it's the same issue that everybody deals with for every situation. I used to go to every single door on Main Street for trick or treating, 15 years ago. And the one person I missed that I'd come back to, nobody told me about this. I'm not participating. Why didn't you come sooner? That's in every situation. Everybody said, how come nobody told us that? How come nobody invited us? I don't know what the solution is. It's the same way how you get information out about any issue. How you say exactly we're having this event. It's even harder nowadays since we don't have a radio station and we don't have a newspaper that.
Exactly, that is a key issue.
It's hard.
But everything that the city has is on our website. Everything, and I encourage you, if you haven't done it already, go look at everything we have about the pool. It's all up there. Also, there's a way that you can subscribe to notices for our meetings by email. Every meeting the city has, you can subscribe to. I would encourage you, and you don't have to take them all. You can just do the ones that you're interested in. That's a good one. But I'm kind of concerned that I've heard this over and over again about, we need more time. 2.5 years is a long time. And once we pull the trigger to build this pool, it's gonna be years, at least a year or two before it's fully constructed. So this time just keeps moving on. And so I think it would be a mistake if we really want a pool. And I'm sure, show of hands, who really wants this pool? Who really wants it? Okay, who does not want it? Is there anyone you're guessing?
Can I clarify? I want 8 people. I'm not saying.
No, all right, but I'm just, I just wanna know if you want one, you want equal. Okay, so. If we pause everything for 6 months. My question to you is, well, what are you going to do to give us more information that we don't have now? What is it that, you know, that you can do as a group in 6 months, they haven't done in 2.5 years? That's my question.
I don't know if anyone else, I'll just speak for myself, because I definitely voted for the, last year to build a group. I wasn't sure exactly what all that included. I knew I just wanted to go before I was voting. When I did the survey for the rec district, I did get my feedback and wanted I didn't want the year-round indoor outdoor. Wanted to scale down seasonal. I think that's what I hear from people, but they also want what it seems like we get support.
And did you look at the financial numbers?
The voting down.
Comparative financial numbers.
You know, sort of. Cool, that's been 3 or 4 times and voted down. So. I guess, I don't know if a lot of people also felt that way was what we voted on last year. I didn't know that was based on indoor year-round. So is that then for us saying, let's scale it down and make it more usable? Or
well, that was what 2.5 years ago was when the community was giving input to the board, and there was discussions about it.
So that was the survey.
That was.
I'm saying,
but no, what I'm saying is the meetings that they had and, you know, input from the community, that was the time. I'm just saying, what can you do in 6 months?
Right, so I think that what I'm hearing people say is let's keep collecting, and I would want you to keep collecting. And they can get as much money as I'm right for that. I don't know, sir, Mr. Slater, do any of those funds be used for operations?
No.
So coming up with more scaled down version, which what I'm hearing people want to have, and especially if the district is very strapped on its budget and anything went wrong, we could move for things like more prudent to have a smaller project.
Please.
So first of all, I have to apologize. I have to leave here and as soon as I'm done talking. So hopefully I can just throw a grenade out there and then walk away. So one of the things that the rec district has heard, particularly yesterday, but also over the last week, is two entirely different things. One is people going, I don't care about the outdoor pool. All I want is an indoor year-round pool. And we have other people going, I don't care about the indoor pool. All I want is a seasonal 3-month-a-year outdoor pool. Why can't you tone it down to that? Or why can't you just build the indoor pool? And the reality is not everybody is on the same page on that. But I will say, with respect to some of the comments, that in 2021, we did have another election on a rec center. And what we heard from the vote, and it was a very moderate, it wasn't a Taj, I hate this term Taj Mahal, because nothing the rec district has ever proposed has been a Taj Mahal. But what we proposed in 2021 was a rec center, a very moderate, simple recreation center for the community, and that was voted down. So the recreation district said, okay, we understand, we don't want something that big. All we want is a swimming pool. All we need is a swimming pool. And with our partners from the school district saying, you know, in particular, we really need something maybe for the kids year round, swim team year round. We came up with a very scaled down, simple indoor outdoor facility. It's not a Taj Mahal. And in fact, throughout in the past few months, we've toned it down further when we learned from our contractors that there was a lot of glass and it was kind of fancy on the outside. We asked our contractors to tone that down to make it even simpler and cheaper for the voters, because that's what the recreation district heard from the voters. And so for folks out there saying this is way too big, we need something simpler, This is about as simple as you can get without being a barn with a pool of water underneath it, which would last maybe 10 or 15 years. That's the other thing, is we want something that's gonna last 50 years because we have a fiscal responsibility to the voters. So I guess I just wanted to get that off my chest. I don't know if that's not a legal opinion, that's more my opinion. You did swim in this pool in the 1970s as well, as a child.
But you did provide the legal opinion earlier that it doesn't have to be the pool that was voted on, or that was part of the studies and part of the design.
You know, there's a lot of leeway in the way the ballot.
Yeah, if you just want a hole in the ground, you can have it.
1 second. Awesome. Okay, thanks so much. Please go ahead.
All right, I know I've been at several council meetings, and it has been brought up by, I don't know if he's here or not, but with the pool, well, the citizens that want the pool, can we come up with a solution to where it's citizen ran and citizens buy into the pool? I know it had been brought up several times, but is there a possibility that citizens could buy into the pool and help operate that?
So you want a private club,
Well,
so you want a private facility, you don't want.
I mean, I understand that, well, I know that it had been brought up several times, but is there a way that?
So even. That is not gonna work. If you're looking at more of a private facility, you're looking at entrance into a pool being $20 a day, if not more, things on those lines. What we are tasked with at the Recreation District is also meeting the socioeconomic needs of the community. The city, in a lot of situations, is tasked with things that are similar. We have to meet the needs of the community. We have to understand the economics. That is why when I hear people talk about this is too great of a plan, could not be further from the truth. Reality is we have downsized it, not to meet the size of the community that we have. We're actually meeting the needs of a community that's more built for something that's 10,000 people or under. What we did was what we could afford and what the community could afford. And you're not going to get a private facility. YMCA's done 3 feasibility studies in here and all 3 have come up with the same thing. Nope. Can't afford it. It's on us.
Thank you, Kyle. I have one, oh, please, Heather.
I just had a thought about that. Wasn't there a $1 million donation at one point for the annual?
It's still.
It's still there.
Potentially, I mean,
Is that?
this lost, I don't know where it's at.
That for operation?
That's from the bigger staff, correct? Is that what we're referring to, the bigger staff?
Where it's from.
It's from, I'm just gonna, let me go to my notes. It's fine, it's okay. No, not from the Abbey. It was from last year. It was a local foundation offered $1 million donation over 10 years of all precursors passed last year. We're still in talks with them. They want to see a pool here, and it is, from the Lake Bickerstaff. They have roots. Sure, a lot of us, their community members know what I'm talking about. They have roots tied here, and so they do want to see a pool happen there. So I'm still in talks with them. We actually still do have a nonprofit set up, for funding, mission statement is for recreation. We've done a lot of the ideas that have been thrown out over the past 2 years. We've tried. So I don't want to discredit what anybody's doing, but I mean, we have, I personally helped with writing $1.2 million land water for the grant that the rec district tried. One reason it was denied was due to not having operational funding. Even when we were outside of eligibility boundaries, we still applied for grants because we were committed. We sent letters to businesses. We helped the SWO team try to get a signed cap from Michael Phillips. We tried to get that to where we could try to auction it off to raise funds. We reached out to him to try to get and get him a pool back. So all the narrative that might be that only one business is stepping up, it's not true. This community has been stepping up, and I know for a fact for the past 2 years that we have been through both effort and art. I've been talking with Dr. Baker, so Jonas Fine, he didn't speak today. He has been kind of talking about a citizens approach funding mechanism.
we had talked about an enterprise zone, but the thing with an enterprise zone is we need 100% design. So we were stopped at the application because we don't have architect, we didn't have a design. So what an enterprise zone is where, people and businesses can contribute to get a tax rate go through the state. And that's all about it. You can't have concepts, it has to be the final design. If you don't have that, you can't put in a complete application with that as well. So that was our main barrier with that. You know, we have tried. We didn't just look through taxes. And I know that people keep saying that all we've been going through is taxes. We have not. There has been a lot of, there was kids who stood at a rec district board meeting who they did a lemonade stand for a while, and they gave those funds to the rec district to try for a pool. There's been businesses and individuals who have been given money. So it's not accurate to say that nobody else is stepping up, because the community is trying to step up. This is probably one of the most that I've ever seen at a meeting. So that's really great to see that people do care and do want to improve, and it's that people are trying to find solutions. You know, emotions are raw after the election, and it's understandable. This campaign has left scars, which is something I never, ever thought would. I never thought that I would be hesitant to walk into the grocery store in a town that I've grown up in and that I love. But I am, unfortunately, over this. Healing has to begin somewhere. It acknowledges with what went wrong, mending relationships and trying to rebuild trust. Sandy and I did that. Totally different side of the fence. But it was because we misunderstood each other, we sat, we talked. You know, we're not Denver. We're a close-knit community where we see each other, like I said, at the grocery store, at events, and at church. We all care about this town and the people who are in it. You know, it's tough. We said yes to the construction, you know, which put everyone in a really, really hard spot, because we said yes to build it, but we don't want to operate it, which puts all of them sitting up there really, really tough.
Awesome. So I think we had Tim's hand first, and then we'll get to you, Beth.
Thank you, Amy. I apologize for not being there in person. I have some work going on in my house. You know, I want to thank everybody who's worked on this pool. I think everybody did what they could. And, you know, I'm going to say a few things. The people who say that the pool could be scaled down, the pool's been there 50 years. We have a lot bigger population, and a scaled down pool just won't work. I took my son there. He's 11 years old for swim lessons. And all he kept doing was getting kicked in that by other people in that during the swim lessons. That's hard for me to see, because I grew up in a pool in Colorado Springs that, you know, it was a private pool, but man, we had room. There's not enough room if we would have just replaced that, especially as our economy grows. And if some of these, you know, these projects come to fruition on more people coming to, you know, to Fremont County. And I am disappointed this didn't pass. And I'm going to say this, I'm disappointed in the train and the way they handled this. You know what it's like having your 11-year-old son asking you why your picture's up on the thing? Now, I made a joke about it, but that was in very, very poor taste. Nobody else, well, there is for other people. You know, you might not have other people's kids are growing up. My kid's 11 years old. He has to deal with that with the other kids at school talking to him about it. Very, very piss poor decision on their part, and very unprofessional. I will say that. Very unprofessional. But to go on now, we don't need to scale it down. We need to figure out how to finance this. This city needs a pool. You know, everybody can say, well, no, we do need a pool. We're a rec district. You know, we're a very strong recreation area. We have rafting. We have kids swimming in the river who aren't really qualified to swim that well. They'll put on a life jacket. That's not the same thing. We need to do something. I believe that, we do need to hold off on this, stopping more time. We need to continue this on for a little bit to find some funding for this. I do appreciate that the train is offering 100,000. I said that in the meeting, a few weeks back. I think that's a nice gesture. I don't think the 2% tax would have hurt anybody, but that's my own opinion. Maybe they felt that the 2% tax on them, which really wasn't on them, would have hurt them, but that's their opinion. But anyways, I just want to say we need to continue working on this, give it a little bit more time, see what we can come up with. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. I think we've got Beth and then you. Is that okay, Jerry?
No, I was saying something.
Okay.
Actually, I think my question is more for Rec District. I'll hold on.
It is a joint meeting, so if you want to ask, you're more than welcome. You're just.
I think I'll go about it.
Absolutely. I did have one question for Attorney Sellers. I think it's difficult for me to contemplate the idea of continuing to collect a tax without a clear way forward. So I guess I would want to have a better understanding of what does that look like in the fall, if worst comes to worst and there isn't a sustainable way forward for the Rec District to build a pool. What does that look like if we do have to end the tax? What happens to those funds? I believe I understand that it would go back to the voters as a decision, but could you please walk us through that process?
Sure. So that's one option, is to go back to the voters and ask them to allow the city to use those funds in a different way. That's going to be up to council at the time, whether that's the option they want to undertake. Other than that, Tabor requires that money, which is typically it's termed in as excess funds, but these would be funds that were collected for a certain purpose and the city's not going to use them for that purpose anymore. That was voter approved. And so there's a possibility that you could refund those taxes. They do not go back, because they're sales tax. They do not go back to the individuals who paid those taxes. They would go back to the vendor. Tabor is not specific about how to refund. It sets some general parameters, but it doesn't tell you how to do that. So that's an option for the city to discuss at that time. I think that's probably a pretty in-depth discussion if and when that decision is made to move in a different direction.
Thank you. And could you please also, we do have an IGA, an intergovernmental agreement with the Rec District that is already existent about the sales collection. Could you please walk us through what legally would need to happen for us to pause collection, continue collection, or stop collection, particularly given the deadline of next Tuesday?
So it's my opinion that the way the IGA is worded, that the best path for the parties is to amend that IGA to allow that pause if that's how they decide to proceed. If they decide to not pause it, I don't think anything necessarily has to happen within the next week regarding that IGA. Because the language of the IGA talks about the mill levy ballot question going on the ballot. And of course, that didn't happen by agreement of the parties. A different tax went on the ballot. And so I would recommend kind of sorting that out so the IGA reflects the current circumstances. But I don't think that's a next week problem necessarily if the parties are not going to agree to pause the sales tax. And I guess like in the future, if the parties were to agree to pause the sales tax, the city needs to take action by ordinance, and that amendment can occur. Those two documents need to be aligned in how any implementation of the sales tax in the future would occur. So it's going to what the future looks like is going to kind of depend on how we handle that in the ordinance and in the amendment.
So if the city did want to pause the sales tax collection, it would be an ordinance on Monday evening with an amended IGA to follow?
Yeah, so the way that the city would have to do it, because of the DOR's restriction, it would be an emergency ordinance on your Monday night meeting. Because the sales tax is imposed via an ordinance, even though the voters approve, the city actually codifies the voter approval into its code. So our recommendation is like action needs to be take deposit. So a resolution doesn't have the equal weight of an ordinance. And so that's why our recommendation is an ordinance. It's an emergency because of the situation with the Department of Revenue.
Thank you. And would any action need to be taken by the rec district in order for us to do that?
My preference is that the amendment to the IGA be concurrent with that ordinance.
So an amended IGA actually be on the agenda on Monday evening as well?
Just an amendment to the IGA?
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's really helpful. Does anyone else have any other questions or comments or?
I just, after I, talked to the crowd directly, I feel like, the people have spoken, they want a pool. And I think it would be foolish on our part to stop the collection. Because going forward, the only way we're going to have a pool in a lifetime is if we let that accrue. It's so, but I feel like there's people have voted, they want the pool. And getting the operating funds, we're still in the process of negotiating that. We may be able to cobble some things together that wouldn't depend on fundraising all the time. I certainly would not go along with perpetual fundraising because we know the limitations of a small town like this, and we're one of the poorest counties in Colorado. Our average income is less than 50,000. So, for a family of four. And so I don't think that is realistic, even and businesses struggle in this town as well with their finances. So I think but there is a way to do this. And I think stopping the tax would just be harmful to everybody involved.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you guys all so much for coming. We really do appreciate it. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for that meeting.